Aries Gamma 370 Pro. I found this plane to be quite good little trainer, very stable, and I'm very happy with its flying characteristics and capabilities. So what I decided to do was to try and improve the model a little bit. One of the things I had to do was put a little bit of a strengthener at the back of the tail section here, the elevator, because that's a very weak joint on the back there. I find foam panes can be very susceptible to hanger rash, so what I've done here, I've given it a PVA wash all over, a waterproof PVA with a slight bit of water, wash all over, and it gives it a hardened and waterproof and a lot more hard wearing finish. A lot more durable. Same on the wing as well. What I found with the wings, they can have a tendency to move, so what I've done here is put two balsa blocks onto the wing, glued onto the wing, so the wing sits perfectly into the fuselage section. I found the fuselage a little bit weak as well at this point here, giving way as you pressed it in. So what I've done, I put a foam block across here, and also I'm over on a foam block and a lollipop stick. Okay, adding this extra bit of weight can put a little bit of a stress on the fuselage, so what I've done here, I've added a couple of springs. These two springs are from a mousetrap from a pound or dollar store. They're just epoxy resin on to the actual undercarriage section, so the weight, when the weight comes back onto the undercarriage, it pushes back against the springs rather than bending and flexing and making the battery bay undercarriage section there weak. I did notice some stress marks there, so that's a lot stronger improvement to that undercarriage. Also, what happened to me on the Gamma here was the motor came loose. So the best thing to do with the square section inside there, the square section that the motor bolts onto, you're best to epoxy resin the motor onto that shaft, and also the two grub screws that actually hold the motor onto its circular back plate. Take those out and Loctite them or thread lock them, because they will work loose, and when they work loose they strip the aluminium thread. That's the recommendation I would tell anyone to do with this model. An aftermarket prop adapter, prop saver, so you know, no mishaps. Yeah, so these improvements have made it a lot better, a lot more hard wearing, so I'm happy with it now. It should be a little bit better and stand the test of time. And this is another one I bought too, because I was so impressed with how this plane flies. It's nice as a trainer, and it's also got some nice characteristics for some good steady flying for someone who's a bit more experienced. Also, it can be quite aerobatic as well, so it's worth doing the modifications and upgrading things, especially with the strengthening in the fuselage here. As you can see, I put a lollipop stick across there as well as some foam, because when you do loop the loops and barrel rolls, etc., you can stress the wings. I actually had the wings lift up off the wing bands and stick up in the air here, and it was like flying a really lofty glider. So yeah, the blocks on the on the wing here, as you can see, it's just a couple of balsa blocks, just taking some measurements of the fuselage, and then you can either PVA or epoxy resin them on, and you have a lovely fit into the fuselage like so, as you can see. And there's no left or right, you know, it's not going to shoot left, it's not going to shoot right, and it's going to help prevent lift as well. And the best thing about it is every time you put the wing on, it's spot on in the middle. It lines up with fuselage perfectly every time, it's pre-done, and then put your bands across. This plane here is the second Gamma that I purchased. I have put a slight motor upgrade in this. It got moved away from the bell motor inside, and I've put a traditional brushless outrunner type motor in here with a little bit more performance, and because of that I can have a slightly better standard prop shaft, prop adapter. And the 8x6 prop, but a slightly better one, a nylon one, because the ones that come with the plane are made out of cheap plastic, and one slight strike and that's it, they tend to explode and that's it all over. You need a new prop. As you can see on here, or if you might not be able to see, there's a PVA wash all over, and it saves you getting ragged, tatted edges, and it just feels a bit more like you know, what you would get from a, you know, from a balsa plane or plastic composite plane or something like that. You know, it's going to last. A little bit of wing seating tape on the wings here to get a better seating in the wings, stop any slipping and moving. And as you can see, I'm just in the process of putting the suspension, the springs on the back of those. As I say, they're just from a mouse trap. And what I do, as we can see over here, is I just use epoxy resin and cotton. So I super glue them in place, and when they're in place I will wrap cotton around and round with epoxy resin mixed in with it, and you get a really strong solid connection here which doesn't break. It's a very old trick they've been using for years and years in the model trade and in the hobby and it's very strong. And as the undercarriage goes back, instead of pulling on the plastic battery bay and eventually ripping out, I did have it come out a little bit. I had to glue it back in. The tension will go back on the spring and it will just spring back, and that's going to save a hell of a lot of damage. So I've got the yellow one, the first one I built here, and the red one, that is a Gamma Pro. And the reason it's red is because I bought a standard Gamma and I bought a Gamma Pro wing for it because it's all they had in stock at the model shop at the time, so I just transferred the stickers from one model over to the other. So I hope this video is of some interest to somebody, but I'm happy with everything now. Really good plane for beginners. It's worth doing these mods to it because it will last you and it won't go all tatty. The wings on these are very, very light, I found, compared to the fuselage, so the PVA wash over the wing and a double PVA wash on the control surfaces is definitely worth doing, because I don't think these wings would last very long at all if you didn't do that. They were very, very light foam, and you know, they seem very light and not so good quality and as heavy as the fuselage. So there's a bit more strength and weight in that wing now. So that's something I do with all my foam models. You might see from some of my other videos, I either use a PVA wash or I use a water-based varnish, which is polyurethane type varnish. Okay, that's the end of this video. Thank you for watching. Bye.